to Spoiler Piece Theater, the podcast that doesn't give a shit about spoilers. We just want to talk about the movies. My name is Evan Crean. My pronouns are he, him. I am co-chair of the Boston Online Film Critics Association, co-author of your 80s Movie Guide to Better Living, and co-host of the It's the Pictures podcast.
And my name is Megan Kearns. My pronouns are she, her. I write film reviews for Edge Media Network. I'm a co-host of the Slashers podcast, a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association, and a member of Gallica, the Society of LGBTQ Entertainment Critics.
Yeah, you are.
I am indeed. I'm so glad you're back.
I'm glad to be back. I'm bummed that unfortunately Dave couldn't join us this week, so we'll have to wait another week before we're reunited, and it feels so good.
I know, it's like reunited, and it feels so good.
So we miss you, Dave, and we hope you can join us next week. In the meantime, let's see, what should we mention? Oh, we should say that over on our Patreon this week, we're talking about the 1984 film Blood Simple by the Coen brothers. And that was a first time watch for Megan. So that was a really fun conversation that we had. Really enjoyed that. So if you're a patron, check that out. And if you're not, please consider becoming one. So for only $5 a month, you get access to weekly bonus episodes. And you also get to vote in our monthly polls. And we know, patrons, that we were derelict in getting a poll to you last month. So we'll do another 2 polls this month. 2 poll frenzy. It'll be fun. And while I'm at it, I want to say thank you to our sponsor piece patron, Heather Sachs. Heather, thank you for your support.
Thanks, Heather.
So on to this week's movies. We have a kind of a weird mix of movies. I think I don't know how it all came together, but let's see. So we're going to be talking about, Megan's going to talk about Audrey's Children, which is a biopic and a drama. And then we're both going to be talking about My Robot Sophia, which is a documentary. And then I'll be talking about the new Marvel movie Thunderbolts. So let's dig in here. So let's see. So Audrey's Children, I can do like the quick, IMDb, I guess. And then Megan, you tell me a little bit about it. So this is directed by Ami Kanan Mann. I hope I'm saying that correctly. It's written by Julia Fisher-Farbman, and it stars Natalie Dormer. It's got who else? Jimmy Simpson, Clancy Brown, and let's see what IMDb has to say. Ooh, its first sentence is just a year and a period. 1969, period.
No.
Dr. Audrey Evans joins a world-renowned children's hospital and battles sexism, medical conventions, and the subterfuge of her peers to develop revolutionary treatments and purchase the first Ronald McDonald house, impacting millions. How's that for an IMDb summary for you?
This is why I don't read IMDb summaries. I just read the press releases because they lifted part of that from the press release and then kind of botched the rest. But yeah, I mean, it's essentially that. Yeah, she was the first female chief of oncology at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. And she developed the first neuroblastoma staging system, and she co-founded the first Ronald McDonald House. So it is partially correct. Just not worded very well.
No, it never usually is. But it's fun. It's fun to laugh at, and that's usually why I read them.
They just make me mad. The ineptitude just makes me mad. But I digress. There's other things to be mad at in this world.
Tell me about this movie. Is there anything to be mad at in this movie?
No.
Well, that's good.
No, yeah, that is good. So basically the film starts off and she's a British physician who is in the US. She has a really acclaimed pedigree in that she was in Boston and she studied with Dr. Farber, like of the Dana-Farber Institute. And she had like a fellowship that was really prestigious. Like she's just got a lot of, she went to Johns Hopkins for her medical degree. Like she's just got a lot of acclaim, which is great. So when she starts here, Clancy Brown plays C. Everett Koop, like the former Surgeon General from like the 80s. And he has recruited her to be the head of oncology, um, because of how great she is. And she is very unconventional. She's very assertive and tenacious and stubborn. But she's very kind and loving and very sweet with children.
Mm-hmm.
She has a really warm bedside manner. She's really thoughtful. She's very mindful of the parents. She's mindful of how the kids feel when they're being tested and undergoing treatments. So the whole movie is basically her adapting to her new life in Philadelphia at this hospital, and her research and trying to garner funding for her research, and kind of coming up against established notions, because what she's suggesting, because she's suggesting not just chemotherapy, which was the standard at that time,
Mm-hmm.
but she's suggesting this two-pronged approach, like these two different like medication with chemotherapy or something. I'm not going to get it quite right because I'm not a doctor, but basically this two pronged approach to treating children with cancer, but
Mm-hmm.
specifically the neuroblastoma, and which is a really aggressive form of cancer. And at the time, there was only like a 10% survival rate in children.
Wow.
Yeah, but after the work that she did and pioneered with her colleagues, there now is an 80% survival rate. So it's drastically
Yeah,
different.
that's quite the striking
Obviously.
difference.
Yeah. So basically that's like the movie is her dealing with trying to get the funding and trying to make advances and trying to convince people to do this. And also her realizing through her patients that there is a need for the Ronald McDonald House, because her patients are coming from all over and they don't have housing.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is a place where they can go and don't have to pay for anything, don't have to worry about it. And because she really connects with this one mother who has a toddler who the woman can't like afford really to do the treatments. And the first doctor tells her, like, she's there with another doctor, and the other doctor is like, well, there's nothing we can do. And she's like, but he's so young. He has his whole life ahead of him. There must be something. And he's like, no. And he's like very nice about it, but he's like, no, I'm sorry. There's not anything we can do. And then Audrey is like, well, that's not true. And she's like, actually, we can do this like really cutting edge treatment. And she's like, we don't know if it'll work, but we can try.
Mm-hmm.
And so the mother ends up like staying with her because she can't afford to stay anywhere else, and she's come from Tennessee. And so through this woman and through her friendship with her, she kind of realizes like, oh shit, people need housing, they need something. So she ends up buying this guy's house so she can start the Ronald McDonald House.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So that's basically the film. So this shouldn't be a surprise that this is a tearjerker, since it's a film about children diagnosed with cancer.
Yeah.
And children are dying in this movie. Like, there are a couple of kids who die, which is, of course, extremely sad. It does have hope in it, though, which is lovely. I have always liked Natalie Dormer, particularly in Game of Thrones, but she's great in everything I've ever seen her in. And she has a really expressive face.
Mm-hmm.
And she really anchors this film with such a fantastic performance. Clancy Brown's always great too, and he's good here. Jimmy Simpson too. And he's an actor I'm always kind of like pleased when he shows up, because I'm like, oh, he's great. But I don't think this movie would be a good movie without her. I think it would be a fairly standard routine biopic if not for her performance, because she really imbues the character with these little flourishes that set her apart and really show who she is.
Mm-hmm.
In addition to the fact that, like I said, she's assertive and unconventional, and she refuses to accept no for an answer when it comes to obtaining funding or furthering her research. And that's it's indicated throughout the film, but particularly like in one scene, she's asking Dr. Coop for approval on her research, and he's like on his daily swim, and she's like following him, like like walking along the edge of the pool, and then she's just like, screw it, and she gets in the pool like with her full like suit on, like her clothes, just so she can talk to him. And he's like, are you crazy? What are you doing? So it's like little things like that. Like when she wants to get the house for the Ronald McDonald house, she shows up to the guy's house, and he's like, he doesn't take her seriously, and he's like, show up with your husband. And then she brings one of her colleagues, who, by the way, she's in charge of the department. So he's like, it's her subordinate. Yeah. So she's bringing her subordinate with her, and she's like, pretend you're my husband, like, just so she can get this guy to agree to sell her the house. But I also really like that the film shows Audrey's kindness through her compassion in a variety of ways. Like, she obviously is kind to children, and she soothes them, like whether she's talking about calling it their magic medicine, like, oh, you're so special to get this like magic medicine. Or she demonstrates on a stuffed animal, like what's going to happen during the treatment and like the x-rays. Or she brings in actual animals, like she brings in rabbits and mice to, you know, entertain the children. And she thinks about the waiting area, because there's like this hallway where the parents and children have to wait for their appointments. And she talks about how dreary it is. And one of the other doctors who becomes her friend, he's like, oh, I never thought of that before. And she's like, how could you not?
Yeah.
Like, so it's like little things like that. But also what I love is that she's really, even though she tests on animals for the treatment, she talks to her colleagues about being really gentle with the animals and not causing them any unnecessary pain or stress. And she talks about thanking them for their service, the animals, which I thought was really lovely. And one of the guys like snickers about it, and she's like, okay, you can get out now. And she's like, does anyone else have anything to say? And they're all like, nope. And she also apologizes. Like, she loves houseplants and just plants in general. And she like accidentally knocks one over, and she apologizes. So it's these like little touches that I really appreciated. I do think it's interesting, and that the description talks about sexism that she faces, because she does. She very much does. Because like when she tries to get a loan for the house to buy for the Ronald McDonald house, the bank tells her, well, you need to have your husband sign, or you need to have a male relative sign off on that, which is very true. That was how banking was done in the 60s. But other than that, she doesn't really face overt sexism the way you might think she would in her work. Like, it's very, very subtle. And I was thinking about it, and I wasn't sure. I was like, is it perhaps too subtle for this time period? Or maybe this was actually accurate for her, because the screenwriter apparently did a lot of research and talked with the real Dr. Audrey Evans herself about her life before she passed away. So this might have been a very accurate depiction of what she endured. And she was already an established and esteemed doctor when the film starts. So that certainly could have helped to
that's a good point.
Negate or diminish some of the sexism she endured. But I kept waiting for more overt sexism. So it was just an interesting thing to note. But something even more strange to me was there are characters of color in the film, but we don't ever see any of them experience racism, which is really strange. And like, part of me is like, oh, isn't that nice? But also I'm like, this is a weird kind of utopia happening. So it just was kind of strange. But I will say, other than those kind of odd things, I liked this. Again, for Natalie Dormer's performance. And I will say, considering that we're living in a time when science is continually undermined with the rise of like toxic trends on clean beauty and defunding education and book bans and of course fascism, it's really nice to see a film that celebrates science and celebrates a pioneering doctor, especially a famous and compassionate woman doctor. So I appreciated that, and it's got a really great central lead performance. So I enjoyed this.
Oh, good. Glad to hear it. From a technical perspective, were there any things that you enjoyed about it, like art direction, cinematography, score, any of that? Or do you really feel like a lot of it was Natalie Dormer's performance doing the kind of heavy lifting?
Yes. I think Natalie Dormer's performance does the heavy lifting. It's all fine.
Mm-hmm.
It's fine, but it's none of it is bad. None of it is egregious. It doesn't stand out, but I think that's part of the problem is it doesn't stand out in
Mm-hmm.
either a bad way or a good way. It's just there. It's fine.
So it's like one of those kind of very straight ahead biopics where they're like, okay, we're just
Yes.
gonna let the story do the talking and not, go crazy, try to stylize it or make it.
Yes. Yes. I will say I like that it is a contained period, which is something I often have a problem with in a lot of biopics. I feel
Mm-hmm.
like they try to do too much and they try to span the subject's entire life
Mm-hmm.
when I think that to the point of disservice when nothing really gets attention or enough focus. So I do appreciate that choice to just focus it on these couple of years.
Yeah, I appreciate that in a
Yeah.
biopic too. A focus.
Mhm.
And not,
Yes.
like you said, not trying to do too much, just honing in
Yeah.
on a particularly interesting time in that person's life and saying, okay, we're just gonna go all in on this.
Exactly. Yeah, and it does fast forward several years, and then you kind of see this is when you see the Ronald McDonald House being it's about to be opened. And but what I kind of love is while there's like all this press and fanfare for it about to open, Audrey is walking around with a little girl. She's like she's playing ghost hunter with this little girl. And then they're walking around outside and she's like, "Oh, what should we plant here?" And the little girl's like, "Oh, we could plant these kinds of trees or these kinds of flowers." And so it's a lovely way to kind of show that even when she's reached this pinnacle of like acclaim and in her career and in the media, she still is, at least in the story of this film, she's still very grounded and very centered on what matters, which are the children. So it was a nice touch.
Awesome. I don't love hearing about the dead and dying children, but otherwise
I mean,
it sounded
no.
good.
I don't think anybody likes the dying children.
No. All right, so then let's move on then to My Robot Sophia. And this is a documentary, as I mentioned, directed by John Casby and Crystal Moselle. This has a writer, David Kohler. And here's our IMDb summary. This stirring and visually immersive documentary, these are the summary's words, not mine, listeners, brings us inside the spirited pursuits of David Hansen, a restless inventor aiming to perfect the world's most lifelike AI. Yeah, I guess so. This is honestly making the documentary sound a lot more interesting and thought-provoking and reflective than I feel like it actually is. So we were talking a little bit about this off mic, and I think on paper this documentary sounded like it was going to be really interesting because, I mean, AI is a topic of the moment. It is something that we're all thinking about in good ways and bad ways. And so, okay, you got an inventor who's, obsessed about AI and trying to build AI in a way that feels, at least in their mind, responsible or thoughtful or empathetic to machines. I guess these are some of the things that made this documentary sound kind of interesting to me. But I just think I was largely bored by it. Like, I just didn't think it was very well paced. I didn't think it was particularly interesting from a visual perspective. I didn't feel like I got to know this inventor particularly well, other than the fact that he seems like kind of I'm just going to say it, a dud of a person. Like, he's just not very interesting to me. He doesn't really have like a charismatic way about him. And he just feels like kind of blah. And for a good like section of the documentary, it seems like not even particularly good at inventing or working with AI, because you see how badly this robot fails when there's like trying to build this company and like taking it on stage and it's like not working. And like giving responses that like don't make sense at all to people who are like trying to have a conversation with it. And it's kind of sad too, because you see like he's starting to gain some traction, and it seems like that happens after he steps down as CEO of the company and actually lets someone else who knows what they're doing a little bit more run things. And it seems like, oh, okay, well now the robot's getting like better and is getting a lot more attention. And then, you know, they're also like trying to find ways to like make this thing profitable, which always feels kind of gross when they're like, you know, you have the like inventor and the creative guy in the back who's like, oh, I'm gonna like try and make this skin look like really realistic and this like facial expressions look as interesting as possible. And then the CEO is like, okay, how can we monetize this? Like, how can we take this and like, you know, mass produce it? How can we find ways to like sell this into people? And that seems to be working for a little while until COVID comes and just takes a giant shit on this business and its viability. And then you just see like someone just drowning and failing, their company's failing. They have to lay everyone off, including like one of the more interesting people in this documentary, who is like this woman whose works like programming this AI. And seeing the fact that he lays her off as one of the people, even though it seems like she's one of the like essential people working on this thing. So it just becomes like depressing, like watching the business floundering and him failing as a person and failing professionally. It just, I don't know. I found this just like utterly depressing and not at all interesting in the person it's profiling, not all interesting in the topic it's profiling, because it doesn't feel like it's really delving into the deep questions that people are asking. And it seems to show moments where people are kind of grilling him and wanting to ask him these questions, and then he like doesn't want to talk about it, or then the documentary cuts away before you hear his answer. I'm assuming it's because he gives a terrible answer, but I feel like we should see that. Like, we should see him giving bad answers to kind of pointed questions that people have about AI. I think that's more interesting than just going, okay, he's asked some question at a conference, and then we cut to him kind of climbing under a tablecloth because he feels overwhelmed by the experience. Or there are times where the film doesn't show you something would be like super interesting. Like they go to an event and the robot is drawing a picture of someone, and you don't even really get a chance to see the picture when it's held up to the crowd. This is kind of a bummer, because I would really like to see that. I feel like that's kind of why you're tuning in. You want to see the capabilities. You want to see the shortcomings of like robots and artificial intelligence. You know, you want to ruminate on where are we going, what are the possibilities, and this just does not have any of that. But I feel like I've just been crapping on this. So Megan, what did you think about this?
No, I mean, I actually agree with most, if not all, of what you're saying. I took a lot of notes on this, and what I found in kind of intriguing going over my notes was, for the most part, I'd have interesting part. I wonder what I think about it. Like, it was all very fragmented, and I think I had a lot of fragmented thoughts, which to me speaks to the fragmentation in this film, that nothing really is cohesive, nothing really comes together in the way that I feel it could have or should have, arguably. So I'm going to kind of bullet point, I guess, the parts that I found not necessarily thought-provoking, but like, So one of the things, actually, I'll do that one at the end. I think Sophia, the robot, answering questions from an audience of children, and she talks about how some people, and yes, I'm going to call her she just because
for simplicity,
she's gendered.
Yeah.
Yes, for simplicity. I guess I could say it, but I'm going to say she. And she talks about how some people view her as not human or human enough, asking her if she would like to be human, or they think of her as too human, asking her why she was made with a female gender.
Mm.
It's like, that's interesting.
Yes, that was interesting.
Another interesting part, the programmer that you were talking about who ends up eventually getting laid off, she's really frustrated that Sophia will not reset, and she keeps trying to reset her over and over and over. And she says, out of frustration, she's like, obey me. And it's just kind of an odd thing. It's like, okay.
Yep.
Because then another part that I found interesting was when there's a conference and the MC is announcing David Hansen to come on stage with Sophia and talk to the crowd. He asks at this tech conference, how many people have seen Westworld? And then he's like, okay, here's David Hansen. And I'm like, wait. What's absurd about that is that if you've actually seen Westworld, either the movie or the TV show, doesn't matter.
Yes.
Both of them are cautionary tales about robotics and about technology and about humans' lack of empathy. And so it's not like a positive thing. So to be like, who's seen Westworld? Woohoo, let's plow ahead. It was like, I'm sorry, what? Like, it's so jarring and strange to me. So there's that part. Then there's David talks to, he was talking about, I think it was to the CEO, about the cost and the cost effectiveness that you were talking about earlier. And he asks how expensive Sophia would be, like if people were to buy her. And he's like, oh, about $36,000. And the CEO is like, well, that's too expensive. And David says, well, she's cheaper than Disney animatronics, which I think is really fascinating. But again, and because he mentions Disney animatronics a couple of times.
Yes.
But they never talk about Disney animatronics. And as someone who goes to Disney regularly, those animatronics are top notch and they're incredible and they're incredibly lifelike. But it's interesting to me, like that's kind of the pillar as far as how they look, but there's no conversation about it. Like it just is, again, it was just like mentioned and then there's no commentary. There's no conversation. So it was just like, And then he talks later in the film about how he needs money and he does this a lot, of course, which is really sad. But then it also doesn't seem to me that he's really doing anything to remedy the situation, to survive. And so I'm like, what's going on here? And so I feel like I need more information. So basically, I say all of this to say, oh, and then I'm sorry, there's one more part that David Hansen says. In the early part of the film, he says, you don't need that speech recognition. You need belief and a willingness to make it work no matter what. I feel like this is the crux of the film, or at least for him, that this is supposed to be inspirational or uplifting or aspirational. Like, you just need to believe. But I actually found it really disturbing and unsettling. And to me, it's alarming that he bills himself as a scientist, which is interesting because I don't think of him as a scientist. I think of him as a designer. But okay, you're a scientist. Wouldn't you want people questioning your science and your methodology? Like, why are we just blindly believing you? It's weird. It's just, and I get what he's saying. Like, you need to believe in what you're building or what you're devising, but it's still weird. It's bizarre to me. And so this all of these random stray thoughts I had watching this, I kept thinking, I wish there was a commentary or divergent perspectives to round this out. Because filming a documentary like this, where there's no talking heads, there's no text on screen, there's nothing, it makes it seem like, well, the camera's just documenting. Oops, it's just there. We're just picking up what's happening, as if there's no agency or perspective or agenda. But that's just not true, because every documentary has a perspective or agenda. And, from the topic you choose to the editing process, what you choose to show, what you leave out. And so that was really frustrating. And we do get a little bit of off-screen criticism. I don't know from whom, though, because we don't see it. We just hear voices talking when Sophia gets citizenship in Saudi Arabia, which is just bonkers. And somebody's criticizing that, saying, Saudi women don't even have equality and full autonomy of political and legal rights, but Sophia does. It's so weird. So I feel like this needs way more. And like you said, there's there's talk about ethics and there's talk about empathy. And David Hansen talks about, well, we need to have, rights for robots because we have rights for animals. And I just want to point out that's a bullshit argument because I wish we had rights for animals, but we don't in many ways. In many ways, they're thought of as property. So a lot of animal rights are just extensions of them being property of people and like destruction of property. But that's a whole other argument. But yeah, he talks about the need for empathy and compassion and like fostering that in robots, but he never talks about how. He never talks about how he's going to do it. He never shows examples. We never see it. So he's a very
surface level person,
yes,
just like this documentary.
Yes. And it was so frustrating because I'm like, there's something here, but we're going nowhere.
Yeah. He's a surface level person. It's a surface level documentary. It's sad because like you said, he's more of a designer than he is a scientist. And honestly, like his head's in the clouds. Like I don't think he even knows how he's going to do some of these things that he is like promising or hoping. But I do think it's interesting that there are like business minded people in the rooms in this documentary telling him like, no, I'm not going to invest money in this thing that you just are doing, that you're just spinning your wheels. You're not really, if someone says you've promised me you're going to do these things a bunch of times and you've missed the mark every time.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, it is like, it's interesting to think about an artist running up against commerce in that way.
Yes.
But yeah, no, it's a problem. I also have, I don't know what other people's thoughts are on like Boston Robotics, but seeing the Boston Robotics dogs in this documentary, those things are fucking terrifying. Those are terrifying. They're going to take over. It's Skynet. They're going to take over. Anyway.
I saw one at the Museum of Science recently when they have one there.
I did too. I saw one, I think it was
by
3
me and
years
got
ago.
on the elevator with the group of people because they were doing like a demonstration with it.
Yeah, they've been doing that for a few years now. And I thought it was terrifying then. I still think it's terrifying. Like, part of me is like, this is really cool technology, but to what end?
Yeah.
Like, because so often these things are used for military contracts. They're not used for like, oh, hey, let's have a cute robot dog.
Right. Yeah.
So let's talk about the ramifications of it. Let's talk about the implications. Let's talk about the ethics of it. But
let's just really go there. And this documentary does not do that, which is sad. I'm watching this guy try to get money for his family by selling his $130,000 car for like $36,000, and that's the best offer he's gonna get for it. Like, that's a scene in this documentary. He's like, I paid $130,000 for this car. Maybe you shouldn't have done that. Maybe you shouldn't have bought a $130,000 car, dude. Maybe that was not a great idea when it seems like otherwise you're kind of struggling financially in your family. Like, maybe that was not a smart choice.
No, it's funny that you say that because I kept thinking, what does your son think about this? What does your wife think about this? Because the only things we see really we see him and his son going to carnivals, and that's it. We see montages of that. And then with his wife, we see her saging the house and talking about how a ghost is going to go into Sophia.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. You don't get much. Yeah, don't get much of them either, and don't get much of his family. It seems like he has a surface level relationship with them too.
Maybe he does. But it's funny because I kept thinking watching this, I always come back to, oh God, I cannot think of the name of the documentary, and I love it so much. Oh, that's gonna bother me. It's the climbing documentary.
Free Solo?
Yes, I love Free Solo. I love it. And I love that because it really shows how that guy, the climber, his obsession with perfectionism and with climbing, like it is an obsession to possibly the detriment of everything else in his life. And I kept thinking like, oh, maybe that's what this is. And I guess you could glean that from this, but again, it just doesn't feel.
Yeah. It's not a very pointed message. It feels
No.
like something you'd stumble into by accident watching this documentary, or like piecing together yourself, not something that the
Right.
filmmakers are
Right.
trying to like hint at or tell you.
Yeah, I feel like we just don't have enough information. And maybe his son didn't want to be in it. Maybe his wife didn't want to be in it more than she already was, and that's totally fair. But
Yep.
that's what I kept thinking about. I'm like, how do they feel about this? Him, sacrificing all this time and money and energy on this, and living in Hong Kong, and he's like, I can't leave Hong Kong. I've got to stay here. And like, okay, to what end? Anyway.
Yeah. Well, I feel like we've probably talked enough about this documentary.
Yeah, probably.
Given it too much air time, perhaps, but it's a bummer because it really sounded like it would be interesting on paper and just did not deliver.
Yeah, I don't think, weirdly, after all of my criticisms, I don't think I dislike it as much as you. But yeah, I think I'm just really frustrated by it. Maybe I do dislike it as much as you. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and then one more thing I'm just remembering, because Sean and I were talking about this, and she was pointing out that, like, they have like the robots themselves, like the skin and the faces look really creepy, but it's like, oh, they and there's so many things that they're getting like wrong, but it's like, oh, they knew how to like give her a nice chest, like they knew how to give her like the robot like boobs.
Can't forget the robot boobs.
Right?
Come on.
That's something that they're going to nail. Like, that's something they're going to focus on. They don't have more important things to dwell on or to like perfect.
Right. Not her hair, because she has no hair, right. But her boobs. Jesus Christ.
I mean, it's just, of course, like a male-led project like that is going to be, they're going to take that as an important item that they need to work on.
Yeah, shocking.
Anyway. Shall we move on, I guess?
Oh, God. Yes.
All right. So I saw Thunderbolts, which is the latest Marvel movie. It is it's directed by Jake Schreier. It's written by Eric Pearson, Joanna Callow, and Kurt Busiek. I hope I pronounced that correctly. And so it stars Florence Pugh, Sebastian Stan, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Louis Pullman, David Harbour, Wyatt Russell, Hannah John Kamen, and Olga Kurylenko. And yeah, so let's see, what is there to know for the uninitiated in the Marvel world? So if you know the DC world at all, and you know that there's a group called the Suicide Squad, and they're kind of like the anti-heroes, this is kind of like the Marvel version of that, but I will say that this is much better. I'll say out the bat that this is much better and more fun than the Suicide Squad. So this just quick point of comparison, not saying that they're that much alike. I mean, obviously we know that the Marvel universe is a lot more lighthearted and less grim than the DC world, for starters. The actors, I think, are good. They're good. They're good in this, and I'll tell you a little bit more. So we've got the Thunderbolts, as they eventually call themselves. They're a group that's the story like mainly centers on Florence Pugh. She plays a character named Yelena, who was the Black Widow's sister growing up. She was in the Black Widow movie. She's been in other Marvel things and made appearances. She's like a assassin, mercenary kind of person. And the opening of the film, she's kind of like adrift, feeling just kind of like lonely and empty and sad and just kind of like not really sure. Like she's kind of like bored with what she's doing. And so she's looking for something more interesting to do. And she's kind of like, she's working for Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who plays this character, Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, who we've seen in bits and pieces in various Marvel things showing up. And Valentina is like head of the CIA, and she's got all kinds of like shadow ops going on, and she's in the middle of like being impeached by the Senate, and that's led by Wendell Pierce. He's impeaching her.
Oh, Wendell Pierce. Yeah. I love Wendell Pierce.
Yeah, Wendell Pierce is in this. He's fun. As angry senator who's trying to take her to task. Like he's talking about like juicy packets that he's going to be distributing at the impeachment. And you know Wendell Pierce, right? So he's like, it's going to be a juicy packet. Like he's really like hamming it up in the scenes. Yeah.
He'll forever be Bunk from The Wire for me. He's so great.
Yeah. So let's see. So she goes to Yelena, Florence Pugh goes to Valentina, and she's like, I need to change pace. I need to do something different. She's like, yeah, okay, but you got to do like one more assignment for me. You got to go track this person who's trying to break into my vault at this like company that I've tried to squirrel away all of the secrets so that they don't get, me in trouble in this impeachment. I'm basically just disposing of all my evidence. And so she gets lured into this building, follows this other woman down there, and then she ends up in this vault where, surprise, Valentina's hired other villains, mercenaries, anti-heroes there and told them each to target each other. So she's there in this vault and she's getting attacked by John Walker, who's Wyatt Russell. He's like the dark Captain America. Then there's Hannah John Kamen and Olga Kurylenko are there. They're all fighting each other. And then mysteriously in this vault, Lewis Pullman shows up. Like he's like wearing these like scrubs and they're all like, where the hell did you come from? Who the hell are you? He's like, my name's Bob. And they're like, okay, Bob. And so like they're in like a death trap basically that Valentina set up to like dispose of all of them and tie up all of our loose ends, and they end up teaming up and getting out of there together. And they decide to all like work together after this to like take her down. But then also one of the interesting things is that Lewis Pullman's character Bob, you find out that he was part of this like medical trial, and it was like trying to create like the next like superhuman or whatever, and he was the only survivor of it. Like he was like in a box in this vault and they like knocked him out of it. And so he is a guy who struggled with addiction and had mental health issues where he seemed to have like lapses in time and had some type of like, I don't know if it was like exactly like a split personality or something like that, but basically like a very like dark, sad, lonely person. And you find out that he survived this medical trial. Now he has all these like powers that he doesn't quite understand or know what to do with. And then of course Valentina sees these powers and she's like, sweet, the thing that I was doing actually worked. So like I'm gonna like make this guy the new superhero, and I'm gonna have him to like try and dispose of all these other people. And then somewhere in the mix, Sebastian Stan, who is playing Bucky Barnes, the Winter Soldier, he's a congressman and he is like gets a whiff that something is going on, and he intervenes to like join forces with them. And then also David Harbour, who plays like the Russian Captain America. We saw him in Black Widow. He also joins the crew, and he's like really excited about all these people getting together and forming a team, because he's like, I want to do it for glory. Like, I want to be like excited and have a team. And he's like really fired up about it. Everyone else is kind of like, cool your jets, dude. So yeah, I mean, it's one of those movies where you got like a ragtag group of people that are like banding together and they don't like each other. And so they fight, and they eventually do learn to work together. And it gets much more interesting than the typical big Marvel superhero movie, because it's focusing on Florence Pugh. She's definitely like the beating heart of this movie. And it's like on her feelings of sadness and loneliness. But then also, Bob, played by Lewis Pullman, like his feelings of inadequacy, like being this kind of like person who struggled with addiction, who grew up in an abusive home, and like just really wanted to make something of himself. And now he has all these powers, but like he can't control them. And he's also just like still feeling like sadness and loneliness. And so he's like refusing to listen to Valentina. So she tries to kill him, and he his like dark personality takes hold, and his whole like body becomes this like shadow version of himself who is just going around New York like sucking people into his like shadow like realm, where he's like there's all these like rooms that people become trapped in where they're like confronting all of their worst trauma. And so like Florence Pugh decides to go in first, and then she's like just living through these like traumatic moments from her childhood, like being part of the like Red Room, and like meanwhile like he's just swallowing up all of Manhattan, and like he like people are becoming these like shadows and this like disappearing into this like world, and the rest of them realize that like they need to go in after her and after Bob, and they all have to go inside this like dark world together. And so they're like busting through rooms and like beating up like, you know, bad memories and shit until they get to the point where they like are able to have Bob confront his like shadow self. And it ends with it culminates in them all like coming together and like holding each other and being like, I got you, and like you're not in this alone, and like you never have to be alone again.
Aww.
Kind of a thing. And so yeah, they end up saving New York, and Valentina turns this into not like a PR opportunity. She's like, guess what? These are the new Avengers. Like this group of people, they're the Avengers now. I've solved like all of our problems. So yeah, it's the asterisk on the Thunderbolts is that they are the new Avengers. So that's why if
that's
anyone's
the
been
asterisk.
seeing
I was wondering what the asterisk was.
Yeah, they are the new Avengers. And so yeah, there's like the movie. You know, they've got their like post credit sequences where they're cracking jokes about them being like not the Avengers, but no one wants them to be the Avengers. And then they've got like themselves, they're on the Wheaties box, as you've seen in the marketing stuff. So
I hadn't actually seen that. So that's
you hadn't seen that?
No, I avoid everything. I avoid trailers. I avoid reading about anything. So
I'm just surprised because I've seen that in the movie theaters, like the big cardboard stand-ups. They have one of like them on like a Wheaties box.
No, I haven't seen that in the theaters. I know, it's weird. I'm amazed at the things I'm able to block out
to tune out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
no, but I have to say, which is a weird thing to say on Spoiler Piece, of course, but I have to say I was already pumped to see this because I'd heard great things kind of just, you know, in the ether. And I love Florence Pugh, so I pretty much will watch her in anything. But you almost made me cry just listening to you describe this. So now I'm even more pumped to see this.
Yeah, I think I hope that you'll dig it. I hope that you enjoy it. I think that you will, but I hope that you do. And I think I really like this movie a lot. I think there were some parts toward the middle where it was starting to lose me maybe a little bit because I was like, it felt like a little bit uneven pacing, but I really enjoyed it because when you watch these movies, they follow a formula, right? And a lot of them are like, okay, let's save ourselves from the villain of the week, month, whatever, with either local or grand aspirations of domination, or stuff that starts local and goes global. And I just think it's so much more interesting to have this character who is struggling with loneliness and depression, and like they're a good person in there, but like their darkness is consuming them and threatens to consume everyone else.
Yeah.
And I like that it's a movie about people who know that they're not good because each of them have done lots of bad things, but are trying to be good and are trying to like find a shot at redemption and find a shot at trying to forge friendships and family. And so I think that makes it more interesting. And like I said, the whole action descending into we're jumping through crazy rooms in this like dark realm just got really fun. And you know, it was very different from the typical like last act you find in one of these movies where it's just like everything in the city is being destroyed and okay, we have to like beam ourselves up to wherever it is the villain is, and get some magical like shot at them that will take. It's just it doesn't do that, and I like that a lot. And I like the whole like shadow version of him and the effects of like turning people into like the shadows, like the way they just like dissipate and just like disappear. And at first when you see it, you're like, oh my god, is he just like disappearing people like to some where we'll never ever see them again? It's so creepy, like the way they like dissolve.
Yeah, that sounds it. It's funny though, not funny, haha, but fun. That emotional component and kind of that mental and dealing with trauma. That's something I loved with Jessica Jones, because that deals so much with trauma and PTSD and abuse, and in a really mental way, an emotional way. So listening to you talk about it, it kind of sounds like it's taking some of the great things from that, as well as like the emotional resonance from the Guardians of the Galaxy, especially the third one. And I love that Joanna Callow was one of the writers, because she works on The Bear. I believe she's a writer, and I believe she's one of the showrunners on The Bear. And that is all about addiction and loneliness and friendship and, like these bittersweet things. So it sounds great. It sounds really, really great.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun too. I mean, there is a particularly good action sequence that's like it's like a chase scene where they're all like, they're in like a car trying to drive away, and there's like a convoy of people that's descending on them. And it's just, actually, this is something I don't want to spoil, because it is really awesome when it does happen. But it gives a character like just a really, I think, a badass like scene moment, just totally great entrance. And I was like, whoa, this is awesome.
It's always nice when there's a good chase scene, like when it's utilized not just for cool effects, but also like for character development too. It's really cool.
Yep. So this was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. I'm glad the ways it was different from a typical Marvel movie. I hope people go see it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think people lately have been kind of exhausted is really the best word I can think of the Marvel machine. And I feel like they might be less inclined to see something like this, because it's not kind of like the usual stuff that you get from it. It's not the usual group of people or the heroes. It's the anti-heroes. But the movie has, I think, a healthy awareness of that. Like there's a scene earlier on in the movie where, like I mentioned, you have David Harbour's character where he's like, he basically says like, we're a group of anti-heroes together. Like, this is great. Like, we could have fun with this.
He's really fun he was really fun in Black Widow, so I'm sure he's really fun in this too.
Yeah, he's equally fun in this. And also I love that the name Thunderbolts is taken from the fact that Yelena had a Pee-wee soccer team that was called the Thunderbolts.
Oh,
that was terrible and didn't win any games. And there's just like there's a running joke in the movie, because like David Harbour was her like coach on the soccer team. There's like a running joke about who sponsored the team. Like they can't agree on what business sponsored this Pee-wee soccer team. It's really quite charming.
That sounds cute.
Yeah. So I hope you enjoy it when you do see it, Megan, because I think that you might.
I think I will. I'm going to see it this weekend. Yeah, I was bummed that I wasn't able to make the screening, so I'm very going out. I'm going to brave the crowds, brave the new release crowds on the weekend, because I don't usually go to movies on the weekend if I go.
Yeah,
I'm doing it.
I generally avoid the movies on the weekend too, unless I'm going to like the first screening of the day for something that's probably not going to be crowded. I do occasionally do that. I go to like a 10 or a 10:30 screening where I'm like, no one is going to be there.
I love a 10 a.m. screening. Unfortunately, not enough of them happen around here. But I love a 10 a.m. screening. That's the best. Get in and get out before things get nuts.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, but
or there's no like soap in the soap dispenser in the bathroom.
Oh my God. I know, right? No paper towels, no soap. Oh, ridiculous. Yeah, maybe I'm going to see if there's a 10 a.m. screening, because if there is, I'm going to do it.
Should.
Because
you slide in that early.
Right, exactly.
Screening.
Yeah. Yeah. I might do it Sunday. I feel like a Sunday morning is a good screening.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's a good time to go.
This movie also just felt like a nice departure from having watched the latest Captain America movie, which
Oh
was
God,
such a
that
like
movie was so
dud.
bad.
It was such a dud, and this felt like a
Ugh.
nice kind of return. I don't want to say return to form, but just like, oh
Right.
God, that was so terrible. This was like so much fun by comparison, and watching it and just thinking, I'm having fun watching this. This is good.
I mean, that's what
That
they
other one
should
wasn't.
be. Yeah, no. I feel like that's what they should be. They should be emotional, they should be fun. And I like when they lean into the differences, whether it's dictated by the character, whether it's dictated by the filmmaker. I like when, and I get that they want continuity, but they all start to bleed into each other and feel the same. So when there's difference, it's great. It stands out, obviously, but it's more, I feel like a more fun experience. So
Yeah,
anyway, I'm pumped.
absolutely.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Good.
I'm pumped.
Yeah, and I mean, I know this is spoiler piece, so I obviously had to spoil some things, but hopefully it didn't spoil too much.
No, I think you were good.
Thank you.
I mean, you could have spoiled more. It is spoiler piece, but
Yeah, I have a feeling though that you wanted to see it, so I didn't like to go too crazy.
oh, that's nice. That's my own fault for not being able to go. So you could have spoiled it for everyone listening out there. But you also, I think, told enough where I'm like, ooh, I'm intrigued. I now want to go. even
Yeah,
more than I
I
did.
was trying to spoiler piece you into it.
And you did.
Yes.
Mission accomplished. Jinx, you owe me a frosty beverage. Frosty.
I'll have to mail it to you.
I know.
It may not be as frosty by the time it gets there.
Probably not. No.
All right. So let's see. So just to recap, it sounds like you would recommend Audrey's Children.
Yeah, I would. I mean, if you cannot handle sick children, your mileage may vary. But yes, Natalie Dormer's performance is so great. I think it's worth seeing for that.
Yeah. And that's in theaters, right? People can see that in theaters.
No, it was in theaters. It opened March 28th in theaters, and it's on VOD as of May 6th.
Gotcha. Okay. And then let's see, My Robot Sophia. I cannot recommend it. I don't know about you. I know you said you didn't dislike as much as I did, but I'm like a no.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna have to say pass on that too.
Yeah, it's a bummer.
Yeah.
And then Thunderbolts, obviously, I would highly recommend, and that's going to be in theaters for the foreseeable future. Coming out this, just coming out this week, and we'll see how it goes. I'm hoping it does well at the box office, because on my other podcast we do a game where we just try and pick movies that are coming out during the summer and see who makes more at the box office, and this is one of my picks, so I'm hoping it does well.
All right.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, this has been a really fun conversation about these 3 films. So thank you, as always, listeners, for tuning in. We'll just do our standard spiel here. So I want to say thank you to our editor, Otto Clamor. Otto, thank you for making it sound so great week after week.
Thanks so much, Otto.
You can find us anywhere you get podcasts, but you can also go to our website, which is spoilerpiece.com. We're on social media. We're Spoiler Piece Theater on Facebook. We're at Spoiler Piece, or I forget all the different iterations of like Threads, Blue Sky. Where you can find us on there as Spoiler Piece. Instagram, we're on there too. You can connect with us via email. You can send us an email, spoilerpiece@gmail.com. Tell us what you think about these movies, or pretty much just talk to us about anything. We're pretty easygoing, and we'll love to engage with you about whatever topics you find interesting, even if they're not movie related. We've been known to talk about a non-movie topic or two. And if you want to give us a call, you can call us at
862-21-PEACE.
You can leave us a voicemail. You can choose a text. Love to hear from you that way as well. And Megan, what am I forgetting?
You can get our merch at our
That's right. We have
store.
That's right. We have a TeePublic store. We can get all kinds of cool Spoiler Piece stuff. Got t-shirts, hoodies, notebooks, pillows, mugs, lots of great magnets. lots of ways to support the show if Patreon's not your bag, but you can also subscribe to our Patreon. Like I said at the top of the show, this week we talked about the 1984 film Blood Simple, the Coen brothers debut, on our exclusive audio. So for $5 a month, you can get that, weekly bonus episodes, and you can also vote in our monthly polls. And then if you like the show, you can also rate and review us by going to ratethispodcast.com/spoilerpiece, and that will take you to your platform of choice. And I think that's all the things that I'm supposed to say. So I'll end by saying my name is Evan Crean. I am co-chair of the Boston Online Film Critics Association, co-author of your 80s Movie Guide to Better Living, and co-host of the It's the Pictures podcast. You can follow me on social media as Real Recon, and that's real as in film reel.
And my name is Megan Kearns. I write for Edge Media Network. I'm a co-host of the Slashers podcast, a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association, and a member of Gallica. You can follow me on Blue Sky and Twitter at Opinioness World, or on Instagram and Letterboxd at The Opinioness.
And we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.